Can you see the screen, Noor?
Yeah, just 1 minute. Yeah,
Am I clear? And is the screen also visible?
yeah, everything is okay, perfect. This,
Good evening, everyone. It's 4:30. Let's give a few more minutes for the participants to join in. Philip, Noor, we can start exactly at 4:35.
Okay, we'll do that. I think it's we have similar names already. I can see a few of them who's
Yeah,
joined in.
correct.
okay.
So let's for everybody who's joining, and let's give it another 4 to 5 minutes. 4:35 we'll start. Let's wait for a couple of more minutes. 4:35, we will start. For everybody who's joined in, thank you for joining on time. In the meantime, I just hope there are a few more of us who joined last week. I'm just anticipating them to join in. In the meantime, like what Noor mentioned in the chat, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and type them out. Any feedback on last week's session, you can let us know about that as well. Anything that you want to touch upon again. And if you're attending today's session for the first time, I would like to know that also. If in the chat, you can just mention that you've attended the first session or not. If you're attending it for the first time, just let me know that also. Carbon, there would be one more session. We would have one more session. We will try to cover as much as possible today. And the last session would cover two more topics, and mostly, we would be taking you through some sample questions. Noor has a database of, quite a lot of questions that he's put together, and I'm sure he'll be happy to share that during the last session.
Yeah.
So it's 4:35. I think let's start. We'll start a little slow, and hoping that everybody is joining in. So once again, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, from wherever you're joining in from. Thank you for joining the session. This is part 2 of the webinar series. We've had 2 days before, but the first one was an introduction, and then we went a deep dive into the healthcare technical environment, a healthcare environment, and the clinical informatics part. So just a quick introduction once again about our team. Mr. Ishak was there last week. He's our chair. Our co-chair is Mr. Kanagraj. Anzin, Sachin, and Noor are part of the committee members. I am part of the Healthcare Interoperability Committee member for the India chapter. And both Noor and I would be happy to take today's session. We'll be splitting it up. So this is, so for the 5th of March, we covered these topics. We've gone through the introduction, the healthcare environment, technology environment, a little bit into the clinical informatics aspect of it. Today, what we will be doing is focusing on, the system analysis, design, selection, implementation, support and maintenance, testing and evaluation as well. So anybody who's been part of projects would clearly understand the set of processes that we usually go through. And let's keep that in mind, and that's how we're going to take the journey today. And once again, welcome, and I think let's begin. So the first session for today is system analysis. We'll focus on that. Before I start that, I just want to, if any of you are coming from the project management perspective background, you know there is 6 constraints of a project, right? And although this is not directly adopted into the HIMSS thing, this forms as a base of how we go about implementing a project. It is a structure that is followed, a framework that is followed as a part of the HIMSS knowledge book as well. So the main components over here are, you start with the scope, you schedule the cost, the quality, the resources, and the risk. So the scope will define what exactly the outcome is. The schedule will say by when you should get it delivered, what is the cost of the project, and based on the outcome, how close are you to the quality or what was expected, was it delivered? and the resources, who and what is required to do the work. And finally, the risk. You need to mitigate the risk as a part of it. The next one, we will deep dive into system analysis from now onwards. Now, how can I split it up? So when you start doing the analysis, you try to identify the healthcare problems and opportunities for as a part of the IT implementation, right? So first you try to understand what is the need for change, right? So there are quite a few text on the screen, but I'll pick up the keywords and try explain it from there. And of course, the slides are going to be shared with you. So you just have to go through the journey of the improvements that can happen to the health information system always come with the need of a change, right? So either the existing system does not meet the evolving needs, or there are new emerging technologies that can improve the operations of the hospital drastically. So once that is identified, you start feeling that it is not, whatever systems you have is not enough. And then typically that is observed by a small group of people or somebody who is visionary, and we call him the project champion, right? So that's how the journey begins. And in this phase, what happens is you try to identify the gaps and the opportunities. It is starting to be documented, and you will define what the benefits are and why this project should happen. So this is the thought process that instigates. And finally, everything should come to every project has a cost to it. So there is a benefits to the estimated cost. It is put on the table as well. So what are the typical problems, right? So when you start, or what is the need for the change if you want to look at it? So a couple of them are highlighted on the screen. And it could start from poor quality of health information, right? So some information which is collected probably 5 years ago may not be enough right now, right? It can be the inability. It can be that some information are redundant. It's not consistent with the standards available right now. Second one is the inability to obtain the healthcare information, right? So it can be in different ancillary softwares, and if they are not interconnected, it to pull it out, or it can be in paperwork and all those things. It may not be possible to obtain this. Inadequate procedures, right? Implementation of the systems not related to the relevant organizational changes. If there is a new department that is started in the hospital, is the existing software supporting it? Are different procedures being performed? Can it also be encountered for? So as and when the organization also grows, you'll see if the software is not adapted or evolved, that also becomes a problem, right? Lack of cooperation between information system. I did mention this earlier. Developed. So the other one is it could be that it is primarily developed to support the administrative units. So usually you have these enterprise softwares that are being used for a hospital as well. And it may not fit into the hospital workflow. So it can be any of these reasons. And lack of computerized order information. So history of the drugs that are used or any other substances, medical supply catalogs, lab results. So all these things that contribute into the order information can also be missing. And integrated and operable systems are another factor. Right now, we know longitudinal patient healthcare is an important part, so that systems have to be integrated. Next one is, while we looked at the problem, we also now look at the opportunities, right? So the hospital information system, it can be interchanged with healthcare information systems or patient data management systems. Different regions use different words, but ideally it is to enable the smooth workflow inside the hospital. All these terms are referred to an integrated information system that are used to manage the organization. And it is for the entire operations of the hospital also. It will move from the medical to administrative to financial and the legal data as well, right? And these systems, we touched upon these broadly in our earlier session, are the clinical, financial, or administrative systems, which all together come together as a hospital information system. Now, when we think about benefits of integrated healthcare systems, there are 5 main benefits. The first one starts off with what are the operational benefits? Yeah, so to put it simply, it helps in increasing productivity, reduces cost, improves the quality of the data, improves the possibility of sharing the data, provides better access to data, provides easy exchange, so data representation. So anything that can enable the operational part of it can be attributed as a benefit that contributes to the smooth operations of the company. Second is how can it help the managerial team? So when the management looks at the operations, how can they see things at a glance, right? What is the return on investments? Can they see a dashboard? Can they control things that is creating bottlenecks? So can they make quick decision support decisions to improve certain processes in certain area? So increasing work efficiency, increasing performance, increasing ROI. These are all ways or benefits that will contribute to the managerial department. Second is a strategic focus, right? Based on all the data that is collected right now, we'll be able to plan effectively to have a strategic focus. It helps in planning. It helps in improving relationship with suppliers, knowledge sharing, and from a strategic perspective, a population health, which is a much larger approach, can also be planned around. The next two set of benefits is one from an IT infrastructure perspective. If you plan for that, there'll be some of the elements that can be reused. You can reduce risk. You can work on data integration, real-time integration, custom systems, package systems. Different kinds of solutions can also be integrated as a part of this. So these are all the benefits from an IT infrastructure perspective. Your IT department will have a strategy, or your CIO will and the team will have a strategy of what kind of systems can be integrated into the department. Next one is organizational. So from a broader perspective, and from the examination point of view, the important thing is you need to identify or understand what kind of benefits would be associated with different departments, right? So if they give you an option of 4 benefits, and they will probably ask you to map it towards an infrastructure benefit or an organizational benefit or any of the other 3. Now, going forward for an analysis, SWOT analysis, I'm sure most of you would have already heard about it. SWOT analysis is one of the top tools from a business perspective, business management perspective, that has been used globally. And it is the same tool that we are going to use in HIMSS, which is suggested by for HIMSS as well, while we try to understand what is the current scenario. So when we say SWOT, it is strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat, right, of the business. And there are 2 parts of it, one from the IT and the other one from the healthcare environment part of it. So you need to understand what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Based on that, you will come out with a set of, it's an inward and external looking, right? So you internally look for what are the challenges, what are the weaknesses and strength, and you externally look for what are the opportunities and threats coming from. Based on that, you understand what is the current scenario, right? So if you look at it, you'll see the strength acts as a leverage point for new strategic initiatives, while the weaknesses are limiting factors. Specifically, when you apply it in the healthcare environment, IT and healthcare environment, strength should indicate areas either in the IT or healthcare that are particularly strong. It can be your technical skills, it can be your IT professionals team, it can be the quality of the existing healthcare information systems. These are all your strengths and weaknesses when you look internally. Threats and opportunities identified during the external analysis should be factual, right? You have to back it up. And additional issues of attitudinal issues must be addressed in any strategic plan being formulated and should be included both from a healthcare and IT perspective as well. So once you do this SWOT analysis, what do you understand? Or what do you do with it? The first part that you do with it is from the list of this, you come out with your strategic planning, right? From that perspective, you look at it and you look and try to understand where you want to be and what you must do is the two important factors of the strategic planning. So you understand what is the current scenario, you understand where you need to be and what you must do to reach there. It is a very important thing for any organization because it gives you a clear picture, it gives you a path, a direction to make a decisive movement and take your team through it. Right? And you will be part of the team as well. The next one is that same strategic planning might also contain the mechanisms for guiding the implementation. A strategic planning is always a long-term plan also. It's not an immediate thing. So once you have the strategy, you break it down into your tactical approach, right? So moving ahead, once you have the strategic planning, you come out with the operational plan or you come out with the operational plan or how to go about it. And again, it is the what, who, when, and how much. So these are the four guiding thoughts, the strategies and the tasks that must be undertaken, the people who are involved in it, by when do you need to reach there, and what is the cost, how much, right? Important factors are the guiding things that helps you start with the operational plan. Now, based on the SWOT analysis finding, the project management now creates the project charter. That is the first step, right? What is the primary goal of this project, right? It's a very short document. It is what you use to get the management buy-in. It is very important before you start the entire project that whatever you suggested, if you are the project champion or you are part of the team that is suggesting to make the change or you have identified the needs, there should be a simple summary document that will help you to take your suggestions to the management and get a buy-in from the management. It is the first, it is part of the initiation phase. So you can see very briefly, these are the topics that can be included in the project charter. It will start with the reasons. It will start with the direction concerning the solution. It will give you a budget, the structure of the project, how the team members and who will be the stakeholders in it, the key roles of these team members and the accountability they have, the list of deliverables and a deadline, and also the risk issues and other assumptions that are being taken. So this is a charter. Once you have the charter, the next one that you move into is the project plan. So I'm just taking a step back at here. What I'm trying to do is I'm taking you through a logical process of how you go through it. So you'll find a lot of analysis that is being done, a lot of plans that are broken down as a charter, as a plan, and all those things. So do not get intimidated by it. It's just showing what is the process that we need to follow. I would say right now, just listen to the story, and then once the slides are there with you, you can reiterate through it. And also the review guide will go into each of this from a deeper perspective as well. So the project plan is the stage after the project charter. So the project plan at this stage goes into drilling down, right? So from a 20,000 feet, you're coming down, saying to the ground level at a micro level, now trying to very clearly articulate what the plan is about. So it will detail the instruction on how to execute, manage, and control the project. And this is the planning phase. Here you can see it deals with the value proposition. Very clearly, it will highlight the responsibilities of the people involved, the organizational structure, the phases that it has to go through, and the deliverables. If you're familiar with PMP, again, work breakdown structure is showing how exactly the entire work is going to be broken down, who is going to be responsible, what is the time needed, and what is the resources needed around that. The timeline, milestones, and the documentation of the interdependencies. A project may not always happen one after the other. A project can have different components that can be implemented simultaneously. And that is how the timing is optimized. When you have the components or the modules implemented simultaneously, there are interdependencies. You always need to make sure that there is uh, it can be a smooth transition from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3. So next we go into what we call as SDLC, again interchangeably used with software development lifecycle or systems development lifecycle. So in a software development lifecycle or a systems development lifecycle, these are the stages that are used. And you start off with the planning. Then move into the analysis and requirement. You design the system. You develop and deliver the system. Once the system is delivered, you start going into integrating and testing the system. Implement it. The entire ecosystem is implemented. You go into operations, which is go live, and then go into maintenance and support. So these are the different stages. Again, from a certification perspective, they would probably ask you questions, try to order these different stages in the systems development lifecycle. So one of the first things that you try to do once you have the plan is to go into a feasibility study. There are three parts of the feasibility study. You start off with the technical feasibility. You go into the economic feasibility, and then you move into the operational feasibility. Right? In the technical feasibility, what you're trying to do is you're trying to understand whether the required technology is available or not. Sometimes if you're way moving ahead of the curve, you have raised a requirement, you know that the system can probably take the organization much ahead, but is the systems or the technology already available? Whether the required resources are there, even if, do you have the team internally to support that changes happening right now internally? Does the hardware support it? Does the software support it? Economic feasibility is, of course, yeah, you can be ambitious, but is there a benefit, or can you justify that? How do you justify that? You do a cost benefit analysis. Last one is the operational feasibility. So usually what happens is, if people are comfortable in the way that systems are being used currently, they're very difficult to change. The other thing that I've always seen in a healthcare environment is you might bring in the latest and the newest softwares for a particular department, but the users may not be, they probably will not adapt to using it. There might be some resistance if you're changing the system. If there are new systems, new people using the system might be less. So at times the ROI is very less. There is no proof. After 6 months, when you come and see the number of users on the system, it will be very less. But the software is really advanced. So you need to understand that operational feasibility. Do your organization need it right now? If it is needed, how are you going to motivate people to use it? Moving ahead from the feasibility analysis, you come into the second phase, which is going into writing the requirements, right? The functional requirements. So there are two main activities in this phase. One is trying to understand what the problem is, and two is writing the requirement specifications. So it's specifically trying to understand what the business needs are, what are the major problems that are having right now, how they can be met, who will be responsible, and the individual pieces of the project that needs to put together. Once that problem is analyzed and it's clear, you start breaking it down into a requirements document, right? And the requirement again can be broken up, right? So again, just going back over here, the problem statement will define the problem, identify where the problem is occurring, describe the size and the impact of the problem to the organization. And this comes out as a document which is called as the SRS, which is classically used with software requirement specifications, right? And if you are, that will clearly articulate what is the proposed solution. For the requirement specification, you normally, so there is a specification language. It usually may be an adaptation. It's not, it's a one stage before you start writing the code, right? It's clearly defining, it can be a workflow document, it can be a particular language that is used to define the specification, so that a programmer, he or she, when they look into the document, they clearly understand what needs to be developed. And there is a structure towards that also. That's a specification language. Now coming to the point of requirements. Requirements can be divided into two main requirements, right? One is the functional part of it. The other one is the non-functional. When you come into the functional bit, it is to do with anything that the systems or the software has to provide you as a function. It can be for the department, right? So it can be the registration of the patients or the demographical data. You can say, I need first name, last name, and parent's name. For the if it is a child, it has to be always associated with a parent. For the insurance of the child, it will always be related with the parent's insurance. So these kind of conditions and everything can be mentioned in it. So it can be, if you are specifically having an oncology department, you can say that this is the kind of requirements that I need. If you are running a dental organization, you can say this is the requirement. So anything that needs to be done with the function of the software is defined as a part of the function. Now you may ask, what is non-functional? So if I say what is non-functional, it is more to do with the properties of the system, right? How reliable it should be, what is the response time, what is the capacity, or how much data should it be able to store, what is the hardware requirements. So all these kinds of additional non-functional requirements also needs to be captured. Again, I'm not going into depth over here, but from a basic point of view, any requirements that are analyzed, you need to be able to match it to a functional or a non-functional requirement. The review guide will, of course, give you more detailed solutions there as well. Now, some additional tools and techniques, right, to better gather software requirements. One is the computer-aided uh, software engineering technologies and tools that you use. It's called case. The other one is, the regular kind of techniques that are used. You can go into a brainstorming meeting, you can have a document analysis, you can have a focus group as a part of your organization coming into it. It can be an interview, it can be an observation, prototyping. So various kind of techniques are used to understand what the requirement is. So structured analysis is also a concept that was derived from what they called as structured programming, which needed the structure to be designed and also which needed the analysis to be done in a structure. So you do not have to know in depth how exactly it is done, but it is a process where the business requirements are gathered and the specifications are being developed in a certain structured format, convening to certain practices, and then it is moved into the computer programs, hardware configuration, and manual procedures. So it's the genesis of it is always making the information that is captured should be in a structured format so that the person who is actually developing or delivering the project can understand it. There'll be a business requirement that is captured from business analysts or clinical people or employees in the hospital. But when it comes to the coding, they also need to understand. So the method of actually moving from structured programming to getting the design in a particular structure has always come from a structured system analysis. That is a key message over here. So typical systems development lifecycle methodologies. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are the most commonly used ones, right? You're not going to be quizzed on these, but you need to identify that these are the typical methodologies. Agile, one of the latest ones, or you'll probably be hearing everything is moving into agile methodologies right now. So the Scrum framework, everything is agile frameworks available right now. And most of the developments are happening around this quicker turnarounds with a particular sprint and moving ahead and developing small bits around it. Then you have the lean, you have the waterfall, you have the iterative, and you have the spiral. So identifying that these are the different software development lifecycle methodologies is good enough in the current scope. You might want to read a little bit on trying to understand these as well, but from an examination perspective, I think that is enough. So another thing is, from a problem solving strategy, these are also standards that are used: Kaizen, Six Sigma, and Lean. Kaizen is also known as continuous improvement. It's a long-term approach to work where systematically small incremental changes are being added to improve the efficiency and quality. Six Sigma is always about satisfaction or reducing the number of errors and then improving your process. Lean is at the same time to eliminate all the non-value activities in your system and avoid the waste, and then save the time and money around that. These are different approaches that have been used in across industries. Understanding that these are different strategies that are being used can also be of help, because in a particular hospital, depending on the region and depending on the kind of projects that are going to be implemented, you might choose one of these strategies or one of the reasons to actually move ahead with a project. So with that, I'll come to the end of the first session. I would, open it, leave the discussion open for the next 5 to 10 minutes. And I would also extend the option to Noor if he wants to add on anything that I have covered. In the meantime, if you have any questions, I know I went a little fast. We have the intention is to give you a storytelling, trying to move you along that logical thinking of the system analysis, moving into system design, and then going into selection maintenance as well. So that's the process. Noor, over to you if you want to add anything.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Just remember, project charter is high-level documents, and it's once we develop our project charter, it's rarely change. Okay, and project charter, this document is very important because it's authorized the project manager. Okay, and just I would like to ask two questions. You have any idea about what is scope creep in project management and goal plating? Just I would like to engage you guys. Yes. What is the scope creep and goal plating?
Yeah, just use the chat or the QA.
Yeah, just we want to engage you. We want to make it like interactive two-way learning. Project
You
scope.
can,
Some right now we'll explain.
yep.
Yeah.
You can use the,
Mhm.
what does creep mean in English? So
Yeah. Script creep. Yeah. So Brenda, she's asking about what is project scope. Uh, Scope is defined, what is included in project and what is not in project. Otherwise, a requirement is keep on changing and your project will be, keep on becoming bigger and bigger. Okay. So as Philip mentioned earlier, there are 6 constants in project management. We have to maintain quality, we have to maintain cost. Okay. We have to maintain time. Sometimes cost is very important. We cannot compromise with cost. Okay. Sometimes quality is very important, especially in healthcare. When we are doing healthcare projects, quality is very important because we are responsible for saving patient life. So here we cannot compromise with quality. Okay. Suppose there is a function like there is a marriage party. Okay. Here time is constant because once we deliver our project after marriage is over, what is the use? Okay. So project scope is defined what is included in project and what is not in the project. And project creep, what will happen if you don't have a definite project scope? What will happen? You keep on adding, every time user have different requirement and you will, okay, I will add in our scope, and your project will keep on becoming bigger and bigger, and it's called a project creep. Okay. Once if you don't manage properly your project, scope creep will happen. And another term we talk about goal plating. Okay. Sometimes we as a project manager we try to do goal plating, means it's not a requirement from our customer, just we want to make our customer happy and we do goal plating. So remember, goal plating is not allowed in project management. Don't try to add any functionality from your side until and unless it's required by your customer. Okay, what do you, Flip?
no, true, definitely. I agree to that 100%. So any further questions? Any further questions that I can see? I would also say if you want to take a 5-minute break, please do that. Um, it's 5:13 at my end. So we'll start with the next session at 5:18. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please go ahead.
I think there is one question. What is project charter?
Noor, could you take that? Just
we explained earlier, project charter, this document authorized the project manager. It's give authority, it's give power to project manager. Like, someone is not working properly, he can remove that guy from the project. Means it's having authority. It's give authority to make decision. Okay, it's about you can take you can take decision about you can ask management to provide budget. Okay, these things. It's as a project manager, project charter is very important, and this is the first document to start a project charter. I hope it's clear now. Just I would like to also mention about, we talk about agile project management and hybrid. So sometime, software, mostly we use agile project management like Scrum or DevOps in software development only. Okay. In hardware, suppose we are going to build some, like we want to construct our house. We are going to use traditional project management that is called waterfall model, because we cannot, once we lay our foundation, we cannot break it and again put it. Okay. So in software industry, only agile is used. And we call hybrid, where we use both agile, waterfall and agile. Okay. Like in some cases, we use hardware when we are going to do, because when we develop software, there is also hardware requirement and software requirement. So for the software part, we use agile, and for hardware part, we use like traditional, like waterfall model. Okay, Philip.
I think, yeah, no, let's move ahead. I think, so let's get cracking on to system design. Yeah, it's now it slowly starts getting coming into the phase where you're actually moving into the system design and the processes around that. So system design is the process of defining what the architecture is, the components is, the different modules, the interfaces, the data, everything is almost that needs to be satisfied based on the requirements. And it also describes what all inputs and outputs and the transformation of the data passing through the system will also be needed. It will also say the technology chosen to implement and maintain the system. It can be frameworks, it can be technology, you can say it's cloud, it can be on-premise. So any kind of technology that also needs to gel with your current existing systems. So the primary roles, in a system design phase, again, we've tried to be as exhaustive as possible, but these are all the people or the stakeholders that you bring onto the table. It need not be all of them. It can be some of them, but anybody who can contribute or is being affected by the entire change in the system need to be brought onto the table for the discussion. So you can take your time and read through it, but in general, you have a project manager and a sponsor. Then you have somebody who's facilitating the whole thing. You have business analysts, you have data modelers, you have technical leads and architects, you have developers. Again, some components of over here will also be decided based on the decision of the way you're going to implement the new system. And there are two primarily ones, one which is called a buy, or the other one which is called a build decision, right? So based on that, the different team members will also change around here. What is the purpose and the goals of the system design? One, is to create a very accurate technical specification, right? The design will very clearly bring out the technical specification of it. As a part of the design phase, there is also what is called as a request for information. It is something that is being done before the RFP, which is a request for proposal. And then you finally, based on these two, you go through the build or buy approaches. So these are the main 3 sessions. And now we will dive into each part of how to go about the technical specification, what is part of the RFI, and how do you go about the build or buy decision. So some of the key parts of the technical specification. So the technical specification should encompass a lot of components to it. The important thing is make sure that nothing is left out, right? So you start off with the system and network architecture. You go into the security and data encryption. You go into disaster recovery. You go into data conversion if there is any migration of data that is needed. You go into the response times. These are some of the components. And there are different questions, right? For all of these things are associated with it. Does the system, it has to fit into your existing architecture. Is the organizational security standards met? In the disaster recovery, do you have the recovery time objective and recovery point objective, right? What is the time it will take for the system to recover back, or to what point you want the recovery to be made or restored to if there is a crash, right? What is the data conversion? If you're moving from one system from a legacy system to a new system, what is the data conversion, or is there a different data model around it? It is still continuing with the technical thing. You need to mention how the system is being monitored. You need to mention about the change management. You need to mention about the availability. I need to mention about the system backups, right? Those are technical specifications are still running. So all these part and requirements from your hospital's perspective have to be laid out. So from a certification or an exam perspective, they might ask you questions at which phase or which document are these things defined, or which stage is this defined? Will it be in the analysis stage, or will it be in the design stage? Or if it is, which document will it be? Will it be part of the technical specifications or something else? So these kind of questions can also be popping up. Other set of questions is, do you come from a country which has the daylight savings time, and does the system support that? Right, simple questions. What kind of standards have to be implemented? Right, there are several international standards, HL7, ICD-10. It's moved to ICD-11 right now. DICOM, I'm sure all of you know other standards as well that are being used right now. Does it have to be compatible with that? And government regulations, of course. So right, so healthcare is one of the primary what do you say, facilities that are being monitored and managed by the government also in most of the countries, with Medicare and Medicaid and all those things. So the government on and off will have their own requirements. Is the solution meeting the current government regulations? If there are new regulations that are coming in, can the vendor commit to making that changes, or how long is that turnaround time coming to? System integration. Can it be integrated to your existing systems? Usability, and how easy is it for people to use it? You might want to even consider as a part of inclusion, can people with disability use the system? Can it be used on mobile devices from home, right? Then you have the question of data management. Does the system or fit into whatever current policies and procedures you have with the company? and the compliance, right? Is it following the regulatory compliance, organizational compliance, and the healthcare industry compliances? So once you start writing out the specification, this is again a guideline for you to come out with these set of requirements and very clearly articulating it as a part of your technical specification document. So next you come into the RFI, right? Request for information. Once this is all put out, an RFI is a requirement gathering, information gathering tool. So sometimes what happens is your know-how inside the hospital may not be enough. You probably want to know what all is out there and what all are the solutions and what all vendors can provide you. So you put out an RFI saying that this is the high level requirements that we have gathered already, but are there anything more that you can offer? It does not have to reflect the pricing, but it is a public document that is, requested from vendors to understand what is available. And it will also try to understand the background of the vendors. Are they capable of giving you the solutions, all those things. And once you qualify those vendors and also understand that this is the system that you exactly need and these are the features that will fulfill your business needs, you will then have a shortlisted vendor list that will actually be sent out at the next stage for the RFP. Now comes to the process of buying decision, right? So there are three main processes or ways that you can decide if you want to buy a product once you decide if it is a buy. So one is go for the best of breeds. You might look for the best of the brands globally, which is actually good, and you go ahead and buy that. And the other one is, say, for example, you are already using a solution internally for some of your departments, and when you want to extend into a third department, you want to ask that vendor itself if they have the capacity to extend it. The last one is again through an RFP. You try to identify which is the best vendor out there that is going to help you with the product. So there is always a debate that happens inside the organization, right? Now, how do you choose? Do you want to build it or do you want to buy it? There are two different approaches. But once the vendor the RFI responses are evaluated and calculated, your design team will sort of have a feeling, these are the things out there. Is it fitting into what you need? Or this is the team that we have internally. Do we have technical team? Do we have the capacity internally to build it? So that's when you actually, the RFI document comes in with all the information that is needed. And then you proceed towards creating the RFP if you're deciding to buy. Otherwise, you go into the technical specification documents and you go ahead and build it. If you're deciding for a build, then your team also accordingly changes. You can see that there are more technical team members that will be added into your project team, like the data modelers, the architects, the application developers. Now, so if we've again tried to highlight the factors that influence the buy versus build decisions, right? These are all very self-explanatory, but I will go through that one by one. One of the primary one is the IT strategy, right? If you buy or build, which one is helping your overall IT strategy? Are most of the systems previously being developed internally or purchased? Based on that, you will already have your existing team. And based on that, you may be able to choose. Is it a core or a non-core system, right? Is it the major HIS, or is it only the laboratory information system or the pharmacy information system, right? Or is it any of the ancillary softwares? Is it a commodity versus is it a competitive advantage? Do you need something like a CDSS, which is a clinical decision support system, which will give you a competitive advantage for a particular practice that you're having, right? Or is it a very common thing, just like a payroll processing or a finance or a vendor management software that you can just buy off the shelf? You don't, if it is easily available and it's a commodity, you don't want to build it. You don't need that effort. It's already established as a commodity. Just go ahead and buy it. What is the maturity of your internal IT team? Do you have enough internal development capacity? Right? So what is the maturity? Does it fit whatever software is easily available out there? Does it fit your requirements? Or do you feel only if I build it, it will fit the requirements that are raised by me? And of course, cost and value, right? You need to understand, you need to estimate the cost, the requirements, how long it will take, what is the time available. Do you need the software to be implemented immediately so that your organization can work smoothly? Or do you have a time transition enough to build it and then do the implementation? What is the cost around that? Even if you build it, do you have the capacity to support, maintain, and do the upgrades, right? The project has to, software has to evolve. So it's a long-term decision that you take when you do a build decision. Additional thing, yes, the time and timing. How long do you have? What's in your hand? Political factors, what external factors or what internal decision factors? If there are people in the past who are, do you have a CIO who's built or know how exactly to run development companies and are confident to do that? Do they have a bias? Does the project sponsor have a bias? You need to identify that. Does it support the regulatory requirements, right? Of how the data is being stored, privacy, security, everything. Is it being adhered to? If you build it, can you support it? What about the platform, right? If your organization is in a remote place, if somebody comes to you with a cloud solution where the connection to the internet is not strong, it does not help. Although you're moving forward, you'll probably need to wait to make that decision. So does it support the platform that is already there? Integration. You might have very new advanced software by a vendor over there, but he may not be compatible with the existing softwares. What is the point, right? So how can you get the complete system integrated so that it acts like a single system where the patient data is moved from one system to the other and you have a holistic view? And the life cycle and the cost estimate around that. So all these things are again factors that will help you with the build and buy decision. It is very good to again be part of these kind of discussions when when a project happens into your organization. Again, something that I reflected last time, and I would say or repeat it again right now, is as and when projects happen, volunteer yourself to be part of it in the organization. Try to take up some of these discussions, try to bring some of these topics up and try to see how that decision is being made. This is how over a period of time, your experience will naturally contribute towards your growth and indirectly to different kind of certifications that are happening. So what are the processes, right? Again, there are different types of processes that are doing, and you can use different techniques and you can see what the outcome is, right? How do you prepare for the system design? What are the typical techniques that are used? So if you remember a few slides back, I mentioned that these are the techniques that you can use. It can be interviews, it can be site walks through, and you try to understand that. And the outcome of that phase of the process is you establish the team and the environment for the system design. If you want to define the technical architecture, the technique that you used would be an interview, document gathering and reviews, role and authorization analysis from this perspective, and the outcome would be a technical architecture. Define system standards. The technique that you will use would probably be interviewing, brainstorming, and also understand what are the policy and standard reviews. And then the outcome would be system standards. Again, these are the suggested ones. These are not written on stone. You normally will play around with it and maybe move into different techniques as well. But these are the different processes and the techniques that you use. We still continue with it. How do you create a physical database? The technique, again, the suggested ones, and the outcome would be your database and system files. Next one would be the prototype system components, the technique, and the outcome would be the proof of concept results and the prototype. Now, quick question over here. You will find different, techniques being used around here. And it can be different kinds of tools as well that are being used to deliver different outcomes, right? So now comes the how to produce a technical specification document. And the outcome would be the technical specifications document. So again, we will share these slides with you. It should help you with trying to understand what are the different kinds of techniques. You can do a little bit of research to understand what kind of techniques are used. Again, these are interchangeable. These are only the suggested ones that are commonly used. So with that, I'll come to the end of this session of system design. If you have any questions around that, we can take that up right now. Otherwise, we are just on the halfway mark, and we can take another 5 minutes to look into any kind of questions. And over to you, Noor, in the meantime.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Just I would
Noor,
like
do you want to share the screen?
I will try to share myself. If I have
Okay.
problem, then you. Okay.
Sure.
Meantime, I would like to ask one question. What is the difference between project sponsor and project manager? Please write in chat box your answer. Philip, are you there?
Yes, Noor. I'm just on mute, but I'm here.
Yeah, give me permission to share because I can't share my screen. Yeah. Okay. Share now. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, Noor. Yep.
Yeah. So just I would like to explain what is a sponsor. You know, like if you are working in as a head of department, like imagine it's a radiology, and you are working as head of department, and you request for new system. You are going to be the project sponsor. Okay. Sometimes there is a clash between IT department head and radiology department head, because sometimes as the IT guy, he think he is responsible for selecting PAC system, but in reality, it's not. Radiology department head, he is the main sponsor, so he should decide which system is best. As the IT guy, we are going to make sure that it will integrate in our system, existing system. Okay, so Philip, should we start now our system selection part?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so as we have already discussed about system analysis, system design, once we select our system, how it's happened, how we are going to implement it, and after implementation, how we are going to support and maintenance. Okay. Okay. So as we discussed again and again, what strategic planning, it is very important because any things we do, it must align to our strategic plan. Okay. So once we select our system, we make sure that it's aligned to our strategic plan. Okay. So first we have to receive buy-in from our leadership. Leadership means they are the one who finance, or who are the one who set strategic goal. So their involvement is in any project is very important. Okay. So we must also take buy-in from our staff, like nursing staff or medical department. Okay. Remember, in any healthcare system, nurse input is very important because most of the time they are going to use our healthcare system. So their input is very important. Okay. And how we are going to do training. Training is also important. Sometimes system is fine, but we didn't provide proper training to staff. Okay. And how we are going to support after post implementation. Okay. Who will respond if you as a nurse see any problem, who is going to respond, how we are going to solve the system, these things. Okay. So now we are going to talk about receiving buy-in from leadership through development of a strategic plan. So first, we will make sure how project is aligned with goal of the organization. Just for example, is the organizational interest in enhancing patient satisfaction, expanding service to rural areas, avoiding admission in emergency department, or becoming part of an accountable care organization? Okay. Another is what is the business case? Let's talk about return on investment. Okay. What is profit and investment? Okay. These things we we discuss in business case. Then we have a clinical and technical task and resources needed to build, test, deploy, and support the HIS. This include like detailed information on activities, timeline, deliverable, and milestones. Then we must have also some kind of matrix which we will use to compare. Okay, our data. Now we are going to talk about system selection. First, start with clear goals set forth in IT strategy from the senior executives. Just for example, include improve patient safety, improve specific process, go paperless, establish software selection team. Suppose like a organization strategic goal is to provide safe patient care. So as the IT, how we can align our goal? Like we can say we are going to implement clinical decision support system, which will prevent doctor doing errors. Okay. So what selection team will do? They will ask about question like, what is good about the current system, what can be improved, what is missing from the current system, that must be in new system. Okay. Then we are talking about discussing about team members. Team members should be balanced. We should not have very big team. Okay. Managing big team is very difficult. So team should be based on requirement. Okay. Should not be very less or very big. Okay. And there should be correct staff in the team. Like, like when we are doing a healthcare system, we should have someone from clinical, someone from organizational operational, someone from IT department, and someone from the business department to ensure all affected areas are involved. Okay. So now we are going to discuss about list of staff who might be involved in selection team. Facilitator, provide overall leadership and coordination of system selection processes. Then we have executive sponsor, as I discussed earlier, sponsor, provide support, clarity, mission, facilitate necessary, and act as a champion within the organization. Okay, this position can be filled by Chief Medical Information Officer also. Then we have a technical representative, provide technical expertise such as IT, biomedical, and telecommunications. Then we have business representative who has good idea about workflow of the hospital. Then we have a project and program manager. So let's try to learn about project manager and program manager. Okay, sometimes we have a huge organization. So what we do, we develop program management office, PMO. It's called project management office, and we bring a similar project under program. Okay, under one program. So what is the role of a project or program manager? Provide implementation methodology, like they are going to hybrid, or we are going to use waterfall or agile, like this. Okay. Some other staff who might be involved, like contracting representative, managing healthcare contract is very tricky. Okay, because even if you miss a single wording, it's going to cost. Either it's a contractor or as a organization. Okay. What they do, provide contracting, negotiation, and process expertise. Financial representative, they provide budgetary expertise. Okay, like there are two types of budget, like okay, operational and capital cost. Okay, operational budget is the day-to-day requirement, like our salary for staff is come under um, operational cost. And there is another cost that is called capital cost, like when we buy hardware system or we manufacture, we build our office, that's all come under capital cost. Okay, sometimes question comes, what is the difference between operational and capital cost? Okay. Then we have an organizational change leader. Remember, okay, bringing change is always difficult. Okay, so we have to manage very carefully, because sometimes when we bring change, people are using our system, like any healthcare system for last 20 years, they resist change. Okay, because they can do their task blindly. Now they need to put their effort to learn new system. So those people, they always try to resist change. Okay, and sometimes what happened, change the value of position. Okay, sometimes when we bring change, when we change systems, value of person is going to change. So those person also resist change. Then we have a governance committee. They are responsible for overall management of healthcare. They are the one who provide budget. They monitor using some kind of tools, like they have a dashboard or scorecard. And there is a steering committee. Okay, the steering committee, they are the one who authorize like a project manager, and they also what we call chief executive officer. Okay. So first thing, as we discussed earlier also, requirement, identify requirement. So we have already identified our requirement under system analysis and system design. Okay. Then we will compare our requirement to what system we are going to select. Okay. Like selection criteria are built on the defined need and high level requirement that business case identified necessary for the solution. Okay. So list of the requirement could include the following, like, we have already discussed about functional requirement. Okay. Like example, a system must send an email whenever a condition is met. Okay. For example, an order is placed, a customer sign up, etc. So Just for example, application with organization specific functionality, security and privacy requirement, it is functional requirement, okay? Regulatory requirement, reporting, including standards and custom reporting, integration with other applications or devices, access from multiple locations like acute care, long-term care, clinic, etc. Access from mobile devices, redesign workflow, design support functionality, all these requirements are functional requirement. Then we will see now non-functional requirement, like example include email should be sent with a latency of no longer than 12 hours from such activity. Some example like facility infrastructure, space, cooling, and power hardware for production, development, testing, and training in environments. Hardware for disaster or high availability, hardware for reporting, backup and recovery plans and procedures, workstation, printer requirements, hardware. Remember, we are talking about non-functional requirement. Then system installation, configuration, maintenance, documentation, supplemental staffing for implementation, training, and positive supports, process for issue resolution, and request for enhancement. Maintenance and support process and procedures, expected procurement and implementation timeline, along with any constant that would affect timeline, expected availability, reliability, and scalability. Now we are going to talk about selection activities. Once the requirement have been approved and the decision to buy has been made, it is time to look for vendors that are able to meet them. Okay. So the following element may be involved in solution selections. Okay. We have already discussed about RFI. Now we'll see the sequence, how it's happened. Okay. First, we develop RFP to collect requirement. Okay. Now we have RFP, request for proposal. Remember, RFP is a binding document. Okay. It's like a contract. It has a budget. It has timeline under RFP. Okay. Evaluation of RFP responses, how we are going to evaluate RFP responses. Okay. We must have some kind of matrix. Okay. Then we will compare it to, we are going to compare our RFP to our strategic plan. Okay. How it's aligned to our strategic plan. Okay. Then we are going to discuss about compliance with the regulatory requirement. Remember, we cannot miss this requirement, compliance with the regulatory requirement. Okay. Okay. Then we can, once we have a list of RFP, or we have list of vendors, we can eliminate based on our requirement. Okay. What we are going to do, we are going to eliminate. Okay. Suppose we have received RFP for 100 of vendors. What we are going to do, we are not going to select 100 vendors. Okay. We are going to eliminate in each step. Okay. Okay. So now we have background checks. Okay. Background checks means we try to make sure that vendor is stable in the market. Okay. How long he is in the market, what is financial condition, what will happen. Just imagine we implement a system and the vendor is bankrupt. Okay. So stability is very important. Another thing, what we can do, we can do site visits where vendor has already implemented systems. So we can ask them to provide list. Okay. And we can visit those sites and we can directly ask questions to the staff who are already using their system. Okay. And we can ask questions like, what is good? Okay. Are they satisfied? These such questions. We can ask vendors to demonstrate their system. Okay. Okay. So under demonstration, we must provide our scenario. Otherwise, they will give you a general demonstration. Okay. So we should provide some kind of a script, and based on that script, vendors should demonstrate. Okay, which is aligned to our health case. Okay. Then we have client reference and selection meeting. Once we have selected a system, we are going to do a meeting, and we are going to select few vendors only from 3 to 5 vendors. Okay. Then once we have from 3 to 5 vendors, we will select one vendor. Okay. And now we are going to negotiate our price. Okay. Negotiation is very important. It's like a skills. Negotiation is skills. So once from 3 to 5, we negotiate. Then we'll make a final selection. Okay. And then we will develop our budget development. Okay. Budget development, budget development will include following costs, like what is going to be the implementation cost. Okay. What is going to be cost for annual maintenance? What is going to be cost for license renewal? What is hardware cost? What is software cost? And these are okay. We must include all these costs under budget development. Okay. So now we are going to talk about how we are going to implement once we have selected our system. So change management, we have repeated it again and again, very important. So planning for this change and evaluating the different options for managing them should begin including the procurement process. It is important to have top level support as well as member of senior leadership on change management team to show commitment and provide strong leadership. Teams should also include members from all affected areas. Remember, we should have a stakeholder from all the affected areas so they have a sense of ownership and commitment to project success. Okay. So now we are going to talk about implementation strategies. What is strategies we are going to select, like, big bang, phased by location, phased by functionality, pilot, or like for like. Big bang means we implement a system in whole organization at a time. Okay. So what is the problem here? All staff must be trained because we are going to implement system once for all. Okay. So we should focus here for proper training. Okay. All staff must be properly trained before going for a big bang. Okay. Otherwise we can go for phase by location. Okay. We will implement one location, like we will first implement in like a pharmacy department. We will get their feedback and then we will go for other department. If there is an issue, we will try to resolve the issue before implementing in other department. Okay. We can also do by functionality, like suppose we will implement first like clinical physician order entry, or we will okay, or we will go for ADT system, admission, discharge, and transfers functionality. Or we can do one pilot testing before we implement system. Just do a pilot test. If everything is working fine, we will go for live, or sorry, we'll do pilot testing. If it's working fine, no problem, we will implement. Otherwise, we will try to add what is missing. Okay. Like for like means sometimes we implement system what we have, like what we have, we need the same system but we want to upgrade. Like suppose we have system we are using mainframe, and mainframe is going to be obsolete, so we will move to Windows based system, but we need the same functionality in our new system. Okay, this is called like for like. Now we are going to talk about system integration to support business requirement, like patient demographic information should be shared between outpatient, clinic, or office system, and the inpatient EHR. Why we are sharing information? What is the role? Like otherwise, you have to data once our system. In case our system is not integrated, what will happen? We need to enter data. So we are going to work duplicate work, and we are going to waste a lot of time. That's why we always talk about integration of system. Okay. Once we capture patients' data at registration department, we can share same data with all the other department, or whether it's radiology or pharmacy or any department. Okay. Now we are going to talk about some types of integration to be considered, include the following, like we have a real-time integration. Some integration should be real-time, okay? Like sharing of data nearly simultaneously when it is entered or modified or when another defined trigger occur. The standard for this type of integration is health level 7. Okay, we use HL7 to do real-time integration, which define the specific surrounding the interface messages. So what is sent from the source system is acceptable by destination system. Okay. Sometimes we share data in batch. It's called like scheduled data integration. Okay, like it's not we don't need it in real time. Okay, sometimes for disaster recovery or business continuity, we dump data, in case some disaster happen. So we create a disaster recovery system, and in every night or weekly we dump data in particular ward, like just like OPD ward. So what will happen in case our main system is down and there is critical patient, physician can retrieve data from backup system, okay, which we are dumping. Then we are going to talk about integration of data from devices, some medical device integration. Okay, like we have right now we have wearable devices. Okay, so how we are going to integrate, how data is going to be transferred from patient wearable devices to our EHR system, feeding up data from a specific device into an application. Like these devices can range from thermodynamic monitor, okay, monitor vital sign monitors and anesthesia machines to ventilators. This type of interfaces help decrease manual data entry, but may require the data to be verified before it become official within the system. Now we are going to talk about ensuring health professional engagement and buy-in through a strong clinical leadership, healthcare professional involvement, and solid plan for communication. Okay. Remember, in healthcare, there is a chief medical information officer who is like who work as a bridge between healthcare and IT. So implement a leadership network, an effective structure for setting expectation, facilitating communication, achieving buy-in, and coordinating tasks across facilities, departments, or services area is creation of governance structure that include multidisciplinary advisory committee and clinical steering committees. Recruit clinical championship, already talked about, CMIO. Consistent communication between healthcare professional, administration, and information services ensure that information system appropriately addresses the needs of clinical users and specific care. Now we are going to talk about method of recruiting champion, how we can recruit. A well-coordinated implementation plan in which healthcare professionals are actively involved in decision-making from the start will lay the groundwork for healthcare professional utilization and satisfaction with system like communications. So communication efforts need to address the specific interest and need of each audience. An important area of communication center on how the HIS will benefit healthcare professional in delivery of patient care. Realistic expectation regarding system capabilities also need to be reinforced. Remember, there are many stakeholders. Okay, some have high value and they don't have much interest in the project. Okay, but their position is very high. Okay, they are the one who decide for the budget. So we must inform we must keep, okay, in loop those stakeholders. Otherwise, our system is working, we implement the system, everything is working fine, but sometimes there is an ego clash, okay? Maybe they will refuse. They will refuse to accept the project. So this we must manage stakeholders based on their influence in project, okay? Remember this topic, okay? Now we are going to talk about healthcare professional input. It is imperative that throughout the planning and implementation of HIS, as many healthcare professionals as possible are exposed to the system, and that input is gathered and used in system design and workflow process. Remember, widespread success with HIS rests in large part with successful training program, okay? Training is very important. The development of a strong program begins early in implementation process and is closely coordinated with key implementation activities. The 4 key milestones for training program are what we are going to planning. Next one is curriculum development, train the trainer, and end user training. Okay. So many HIS vendors provide training program guidelines, but each healthcare organization is different and should determine appropriate strategy for meeting its specific training goals and needs. Remember, staff need at least 6 months of training to learn about new systems, but sometimes vendors provide just 1 month of training. It's not enough. And training also depends on the age of the staff, okay? Like, as a doctors, old doctors, they need more training. They need more time to learn system, not like young staff, like nurses who are in their 20s and 30s, they can learn the system very fast, okay? So we have to develop system based on this requirement, okay? Okay. Now we are going to talk about general design guidelines, like some general guidelines when designing a program, like, okay, each user type, okay, types of users, okay. As I mentioned earlier, some doctors, like old doctors, they take long time to learn systems, okay. So we must have patience. We should also identify early adopter with good technology skills and enthusiasm for HIS, okay. There are also late adopters. There is late adopter who learn slowly, okay. And they try to point out what is missing the system, okay. So their input is very important. Those are less skilled in technology, those who are concerned about the possible negative impact of the HIS on patient interaction and clinical processes. The late adopter may identify problems with the systems design or workflow during the training program. It is critical to use this feedback to improve the system design and training program. Remember, all data and scenario used in training should be realistic and reflect how the system look at go live. Provide training as close to go live data as possible. Remember, try to provide training 2 weeks before go live. If we provide training like 6 months earlier or 3 months, users are going to forget, okay? So training should be as close as possible to go live. Like 2 weeks is good time. 2 weeks before go live, okay? Depending on the total number of staff that needs to be trained, the scope of training and the delivery method, this could be as early as 4 weeks before go live, especially if classroom training is used. Now we are going to talk about what is our strategy to develop training program. The training team is identified at the onset of implementation. Typically, this team is responsible for all end user training. Member of this team can include IT personnel, other healthcare professional, and outsider contractor and consultants. Trainer must be knowledgeable knowledgeable about the HIS and also have a strong clinical background, understand practice pattern, be familiar with the protocols and workflow, be able to articulate the reason behind why why system design decision were made. Now we are going to discuss about training methodologies. A program that integrates multiple training methodology is suggested as people have different learning styles like classroom or instructor lead training, virtual training, self-lead training, and just-in-time training are few. The HIS has to be adapted to the extent that it becomes a normal part of the clinical workflows. HIS should be just another part of patient care operation. Okay. So now we are going to talk about adoption strategies. Common sense and experience tell us that HIS acceptance and adoption is related to system ease of use, as we discussed earlier also. Okay, system should make our task easy, should not make our task difficult. Okay, level of future skills, healthcare professional comfort using the system in front of patients. Okay, support from colleagues and pursued positive impact. Additional understanding of dynamics of HIS implementation provides insight into how else one can further encourage healthcare professional to adopt HIS. Okay. Now we need to monitor adoption level, like who is using the system. Just we need to monitor it so that we can do some kind of survey and get their feedback, and we can improve our process or our system. Now we are going to talk about post-implementation support. Healthcare professionals rank the need of training support during implementation and post-go live as the most critical task in a successful HIS. As I discussed earlier, on average, end user will need more than 6 months to adopt the new system, but it is reported that 61% of healthcare organizations maintain on-site support for 30 days post-implementation or less, suggesting that some end users are not receiving the support they need. Okay, so having a clear process for submitting requests for change will help user know their input is valuable. Okay, with that said, it is important to make changes too early. Often the suggestions are just because the system, workflow, or processes are new and different from the ways user have always done things. Unless suggestions are critical to patient care, they should be documented for now. Critical issues would be taken care of right away. The rest of the suggested changes should be evaluated 1 to 2 months after activation to see if they are still needed. Once the system is live, it moves into operation and maintenance mode. Okay, once our system is live, we move from development testing phase to operation and maintenance mode. So we are going to talk about operation and maintenance documentation, what it's include. Okay, it's include like communication plan in case there is a problem, how staff is going to communicate. Okay, it's called communication plan. Okay, how to request for change. Okay, so, okay, these are all documented into our communication plan. Define how end user communicate with the IT department about the new system. How will they request help for an issue? How will they request modification to the system? How will they request help for general questions and about how to use the system? Service desk knowledge based is very important. Service desk or knowledge based system, how it's helped. It's have a database. Suppose we have a problem. Okay, if any problem happened first time, we call the incident. Okay, it's a problem. But if it's same problem start coming again and again, we call it a known problem. So when we face when any problem happened first time, we we will document how we fix it, and we will store that information in our database. So if same problem uh, arise later, we will go our simply database and fix the problem. Okay. This also include about data flow documentation, identify where and how data flows from one system to another, or from one location in the system to another, along with dependencies between systems. This include triggers that prompt data to flow, such as change in patient location or trigger the information to be set to update the lab system. Workflow documents explain end user workflows and how the system fit into users' daily activities. Now we are going to talk about operation and maintenance documentation include what it includes. Configuration management process define how changes are made and what level of approval and documentation are required for each change. Downtime procedure. In healthcare, remember, downtime is very important. From time to time, we need to bring our system down. Sometime it's a planned downtime, sometimes it's unplanned downtime. Under planned downtime, what happened? We send memo in advance, like 2 months before. System is going to be down for 2 days or 2 hours for maintenance. So users are well prepared. Sometimes system uh, go offline unplanned. Okay, so how they are going to work? So there should be a downtime plan. Okay, so as I discussed, there are two types of planned downtime and unplanned downtime. Unplanned downtime, so there should be a business continuity plan in case our system is down. Suppose if system is going to be down just for 50 minutes and it is under our tolerance limits, so staff can wait. But suppose system is going to be down for 5 hours, so there is a backup plan we called business continuity plan. So staff will return back to paper mode from system, how they will work on paper. Once our system is back again, they will put data which from paper to system. Okay, and before we move data from paper to system, there should be integrity tests. Okay, we need to make sure that data is accurate. Okay, there are two types of manual: operational manual, okay, and system manual. So a group of document training from end user manuals to training guides and configuration manual that provide step-by-step direction on how to make change in the system. Okay. As I talked about earlier, business continuity plan, I have already mentioned, so I'll skip. Okay. And what is our disaster recovery plan? Okay. Remember, at current scenario, in what's happening now, we have cloud-based system. Okay, most of the organization is moving in, they are moving to cloud. Okay, cloud means they have dumb terminal. Okay, and their database, their system is in cloud, which is hosted by like Google or many like Amazon. So these terms are obsolete, but we have to remember for the exam point of view what is okay, like what is hard side, what is mirror site, what is warm site and cold site. Mirror site, we have similar site running in parallel. We have database is replicating simultaneously. So we can, in case disaster happen to our healthcare, we can move to our mirror site and it's instant. Okay, we can, it will take just a few minutes to hours. Hard site means we have similar site without data. Okay, without data. Okay, so when we have like hot site, it will take some time to make it operational. Same way we have warm site partially prepared for operation, so it will take from days to week to make it operational. And same way we have cold site, just where we have just our basic, like we have AC, air conditions and connection, we have network connection. But if you want to make it operational, it's going to take weeks to months. Okay. Okay, now we will move to our testing. So I remember, it's not, it's happened in parallel. We are here, we are explaining all these things in sequence, like system implementation and testing. But in reality, it's happened in parallel. Okay, once we have develop our like system analysis or system design phase, we also start creating our testing requirement simultaneously. Okay, so testing and evaluation is a process by which system or component are compared against requirement and specification through testing. The results are evaluated to assess progress of design, performance, supportability, etc. Development, test, and evaluation (DT&E) is an engineering tool used to reduce risk through the acquisition cycles. Operational test and evaluation is the actual or simulated development by typical users of a system under realistic operational conditions. So here we are going to talk about hierarchy testing. Okay, unit testing means when we develop just one module, it's called unit. When we test just one module, it's called unit testing. Okay, integration testing, when we integrate two modules, how they are working, it's called, okay, it's integration testing when we integrate two module. Okay, system testing, once we our system testing is we are overall we are going to test overall system after integration. Okay, it's called system testing, and it's done by a professional testing agent on completed software product before it is introduced to operational environment. Okay, remember, system testing is always should be done by other staff or some third party. Otherwise, if I am the developer of the system and you ask me to test also, I cannot find this error in the system which is developed by me itself. Okay. Then acceptance testing, which is done by the end user. Okay, and this is very important. There are many testing like beta testing of the product done by the actual end users. Now we are going to talk about different type of testing. Like we have usability testing, like as we discussed earlier, disabled person, how they are going to use the system. Okay, load testing means how many users can work on the system simultaneously. I have seen the system. Okay, someone came from India to implement in healthcare organization, because load was less, so system was working perfect. But when the number of users increased from few hundred to few thousand, system stopped working, cannot handle the database. So these things we use load testing to find these problems. Okay. Then we have regression testing, means when we integrate two systems, we use regression testing to make sure that it's not introduced a third error. Okay, new error. Then we do recovery testing, means how system is going to recover in case it crashes. And migration testing, okay, means our data is correct when we move from one system to other and we migrate, we do migration testing, it's called. Okay, functional testing, as we have already talked about functional and non-functional test requirement. So what is functional testing, also known as functional completeness testing? Functional testing involve trying to think of any possible missing functions. Tester might make a list of additional functionalities that a product could have to improve it during functional testing. Okay, it helps to find out what is missing, so we can fix it before we go live. Hardware and software testing. Okay, like IBM refers to hardware software testing as, this is when the tester focuses his or her attention on the interaction between hardware and software. Okay, hardware and software testing is okay, interaction between hardware and software. Okay, Now we are going to talk about test methodologies. Okay. So first we need to define component of test strategy document. Okay. What is the scope and objective? What is business issues, roles and responsibilities? We are going to also talk about communication and status reporting, test, industry standards to follow, test automation and tools, testing measurement and matrices, risk and mitigation, defect reporting and tracking, change and configuration management training plan. The test strategy document is a static document, meaning it is not updated too often. It sets the standard for testing processes and activities, and other documents such as the test plan draws its content from these standards set in test strategy document. Okay. So component of test plan, we are going to talk about feature not to be tested, test technique, what test technique we are going to use. Like, there are many technique like software testing technique, black box testing, white box testing, and gray box. Okay. We use black box testing to test about functional and system testing, stress testing, performance testing, visibility testing, acceptance testing, beta testing, ad hoc testing, regression testing, and intersystem testing, parallel testing, and boundary value. All these testing we do under black box testing. Under white box testing, we test about unit testing, error handling testing, desk checking, code walkthrough, code reviews and inspection. We do code coverage testing, statement path, integration testing, function testing, and complexity testing, etc. And there is another testing we called gray box testing, which include both black box and white box. We use for integration testing and regression testing. Black box testing means when we check how system was developed. Okay, when we and white box testing, we check how output is working. Okay, this thing we do under white box testing. So component of testing plan might include like testing tasks, suspension criteria, feature pass or fail criteria, test environment like entry criteria, exit criteria, we test deliverables, staff training needs, responsibilities, and schedule. Okay, that brings us to end of today's webinar. We hope you would have found this informative. Please, if you have any question, we will be happy to answer.
I think we are just about time, 3 minutes.
Yeah, so if anyone have any questions. Philip, if you would like to summarize what I explained, please go ahead.
No, I think it is good, Noor. You've given some examples, but in general, for everyone to understand, we went through the different processes of actually trying to understand how to analyze the ecosystem, and then move into design, and then go into the selection, implementation, maintenance, and support. So it's a logical extension of how do you move through all these things. What is the time and effort and the planning that is needed to go through everything? What is the team that is needed? What are the tools and techniques that you've used? And how do you bring that structure around so that I think it might be a lot of information if you're exposed to a project for the first time, but if you've already been part of any implementation that has happened in your organizations before, you might be able to correlate to it. And it would be much more easier because that experience will help you understand each and everything that we have taken you through. If not, then also it is fine. I would encourage each and every one of you to look forward to any implementations that are coming through. It can be the smallest of the systems. It can be any ancillary small softwares that are being installed in your organization. Be part of it, volunteer yourself, see how the different stages are going through. Different organization may skip a lot of things based on the experience and the teams that are there, but you can use this as a whole framework. And everything is correlated. So the more experience you have, your goal of clearing the CPHIMS certification also becomes easy. So just keep that in mind. I think it was a good way to go all the way till the testing today. Now, on the last day, like I mentioned, we would have two topics to actually finish, which would be the privacy and security and the leadership and management. And after that, we would give you some review questions. We can probably put some questions on the screen and maybe we can go through it one by one. And this should help you get an idea. And any further questions regarding the materials or the study materials, anything you have, please, review all these questions and then come back on the last day where we can also discuss that. But for today, please go ahead. If you have any questions, please put that in the chat and then we can take it up.
Okay.
We can spend another 5 minutes or so and then wrap up the call for today. I can see it's been a 2-hour long session, so people will definitely want to head back into the weekend.
Yeah. Right.
If you do not have any questions or any further things to be asked, you may leave the call for today, but Noor and I would stay back for another 5 minutes. If you have any questions, please go ahead and post.
Yeah, there is one question from Brian. What is cost benefit analysis? Should I explain or you will?
So how can I put it? There is, sorry, 1 second, I just dropped something. Yeah, so cost benefit analysis is you have an approach to how exactly, what are the costs involved and what are the benefits around each of them. And you normally, let me, how can I put it? You normally put one against the other and clearly articulate that this is the cost that is going to be part of it. And these are the benefits that we will get out of it. And the review guide, I think, will also give you some examples around that. But how can I put it? Like, if there are financial applications which you're taking as a thing, and you have upgraded an internal software, what are the benefits you're expecting from it? But at the same time, what is the cost from it? If you're developing a customer application or a patient application, what is the cost that is around it? And then what is the benefits that you're getting specifically around it? If you're upgrading the hardware or the service, this is the cost and the benefit. So as a part of the whole project, you will have a matrix on what variable you are improving, what is the cost to it, and what is the benefits. And that is cumulatively brought in, and you will sort of understand what is the cost benefit analysis. And that is part of the initial systems analysis part to take to your management and say, okay, now this is something that is clearly factual and articulated. Let's go ahead because of so and so reasons. If you don't see that benefit very clearly, which is also in sync with your organizational strategy, then that's what you use as one of the decisions should you go forward or not? Noor, do you want to add anything?
Just if benefit is of $10 and we are spending $100, so we should not go for that project. If you implement any project and benefit is value of $10, and for that we are spending $100. So just in short, I want to say this is called cost benefit analysis.
Yeah, at a
So,
simple thing, that is it.
yeah.
But you have all the components. It can be, say, for example, the government is coming out with a regulation and you
Yeah.
need to improve certain standards. There is definitely a cost that is going to come around it, but what is the benefit?
Yeah.
Right? Or if you decided you're going to implement a queue system, a waiting queue management system for certain departments, what is the benefit, or what are the pain points that you're having right now? What is the cost that it is going to be? If you are able to manage the queue system properly, and if you are able to increase the throughput of the patients that are going to come, increase the quality of the patients that are attending, experience of the patients that are coming to your hospital, that is then weighed on. So whatever that you want, whatever is your analysis on the need for the change, you identify all those variables where it is touched. There is a cost across each of those things, and there are benefits across each of those things. Say, for example, another one could be where you want to move from an on-premise server architecture to the cloud, right? So that can be another cost benefit analysis that you would do over there.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question, Rihanna. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I think we are done for the day.
Yeah.
I do not see any other questions either. We have been able to communicate clearly to you, or it is very
Yeah.
easy for you to understand. But for the last session, let's try to make it a little difficult for us. If you can come back with certain questions and challenging and interesting, please go ahead and do that, and take live practical examples. The exam is also going to be around that. I wish you good luck once again in terms of reviewing all those things, and see you all for the last session.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Okay. Thanks, Philip. And thanks all our attendees
Thank-
for staying with us so long.
Thank you.